right, well, welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers here with John Cummins, as always. How are you tonight, John?
I'm good, man. I'm about to start figuring out how to get us some more guests, because it's been kind of lonely in the RetroLogic guest seat.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would love to guest if we were a little bit more on top of arranging for it, but we'll see. If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out. Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're still getting back into the groove after taking a break for a while there, but it's all right. We're hanging in there. You know why? Because RetroLogic is not just a podcast; it is a whole community of retro gamers. We have an active, friendly, and free Discord, giveaways, contests, and a whole family of retro podcasts such as RetroGroove, On Topic Retro, and Filmlogic. Speaking of which, our housekeeping for the week, we have some new episodes on those podcasts. So, John, I was on to talk A Link to the Past with you and Shannon, most recently on Topic Retro. So the next Zelda game scheduled is what? Link's Awakening?
Link's Awakening, and it will be the next show even. So this is kind of a weird instance where I played catch up. So we did A Link to the Past last week, and then next week we're going to hop right into Link's Awakening, and there will not be a episode in between like there normally is, and we'll just end the month of November with the what is it? Blaster Master Enemy Below. I keep forgetting what the name of that game for some reason.
I need to play that. That's on my backlog too. So
definitely this week I'm going to try to get to it finally. But yeah, that's what we got going on over at On Topic.
All right. Well, speaking of the other podcasts, Filmlogic dropped a new episode on video game movies, specifically before 2023, since a certain Italian plumber has a movie that everybody's talking about now when it comes to video game movies. And RetroGroove just dropped a new episode on electric pianos, Rhodes and Wurlitzer electric pianos. So a little bit more focused on the hardware side of the music, I guess you could say. Yeah, and the blog has a new post from a new writer. So if you think my posts are terrible and you don't want to read those, read this instead. Mike from Filmlogic has been writing up some parody articles. So expect more of those to come on the way. And that is at the RetroLogic blog on the website. This one is about Wario going to Seminary, so give that one a look. It's pretty funny.
Speaking of films, I guess it was just announced today that we're getting a Zelda film.
Yes.
Like officially announced?
I thought that wasn't real.
I did too.
That's like... That was a random tweet, and I'm like, I don't know what an official account on Twitter looks like anymore, because anybody can pay. I'm like, this is in Japanese. It could be anybody. I still don't believe it. It's not real. I'll believe it when I see it. It's an announcement, right? It's as real as Metroid Prime 4. Is that real? Probably not. I hate to say it.
I mean, if they've already picked out producers and directors and everything, I'd say that there's probably a good chance we're getting this movie. I don't know at what point we're actually at, because the Mario movie took so long to make.
Well, not to mention, there's been Screen Actors Guild striking, all that, and this is live action, so that would affect that. So, yeah, live action's a weird choice to me, but it makes more sense for Zelda than it does for Mario.
Yes.
I raised the question, too, what does the word live action even mean anymore? Sometimes live action means CGI, so...
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fair amount of both. I think they're going to have to put something together that works with probably most of the scenes being done in live action, but they're going to have to do something like to make it Zelda. Like it's got to have.
Yeah,
some
well,
cool
I mean,
stuff.
I think the Mario movie deviates a lot from the source material.
Oh yeah, it totally does.
Ultimately, most fans still like it, and it's still recognizably Mario, but it really moved things around, especially like what they did to Donkey Kong. Like,
yep,
it's very different, and in some ways that makes more sense with Mario because Mario is a bit more malleable, but the Zelda timeline is also very malleable.
Yeah, there's no.
We talked about that with where in the world the most recent games even fit on that. So, yeah, I don't expect this to adapt a specific game. I think this will be
I think it's going to be its own thing
of everything Zelda.
Yep,
and it's going to be a different Link and a different Zelda, and hopefully they work well in the context of their own movie. And that'll be that.
I've seen some suggestions already in the Discord for how they should go about casting. People are saying that they should find some relatively unknown actors for Link and Zelda, and then somebody maybe more well known for Ganondorf.
Yeah,
I could see that working out, especially if they decide to keep Link silent. Be really interesting if they try to fill a story beat with why he's silent.
Yeah. See, I feel like the best middle ground there is to just make him a character who doesn't speak a lot. Not like mute, like he speaks when he has to.
Yep.
But like no more than that. Just make that kind of like a character trait. You can even comment on it, but don't make it like something that distracts attention from the actual action and story.
I mean, if you really think about it, like even Mario does more talking in the movie than he does in any game, pretty much. Yeah. Like they totally had to change.
Well, I said this before in the context of an animated Zelda series. I think the closest thing to how an animated Zelda series should work is Samurai Jack. And it's the same thing there. That is a character who does speak, but very little.
Yeah. Like that aspect of Samurai Jack I like. I think I would much rather have preferred an animated, like similar to the animation of like Castlevania on Netflix. Like there's just something about that. It's anime, but it's not quite anime. Like it's kind of rough, and to me it fits like that kind of mold. But again, we'll set to wait and see.
This isn't animated.
Yeah, I know. This is live
CGI,
action.
But people call CGI live action, and I won't let that go. None of that has anything to do with The Price is Retro.
This is true.
Which we should have lists for this week. Maybe there's a Zelda game on one of these lists. Actually, I thought about putting one on mine, and I didn't.
I have 2 Zelda games on my list.
Shame on me. Oh man. Well, there you go. You got one for me. But I should read the rules, just in case anybody is playing along at home for the first time. If this is your first time playing Price is Retro, here is how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games, and everyone has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever is the closest to the actual sum total value of the lot wins the round. And everyone has a list. Everyone guesses on each other's lists. It's just John and I tonight, so the robot really doesn't play a role. He averages our guesses, but by definition, since it's one guess per round, he loses. Or his guess is actually identical to our guess, but since he guesses on both, his total deviation is going to be off, so he would lose the tiebreaker. So he doesn't matter. Don't worry about him. He's in sleep mode tonight. But his name is Deus Guess Machina. I'm very proud of that name. I came up with it. So without further ado, what is your list for tonight, John?
All right. So, kind of to fit with the theme that I had just finished collecting all of the classic NES series Game Boy Advance games, I picked 4 of them to put on a list. These are all for the Game Boy Advance. They're all the classic NES games, and they're all complete in box. The first one is Super Mario.
Complete in box.
The second game is Metroid. And here are the 2 Zelda games, Zelda, the original, and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
You know, when I was buying Game Boy Advance games, I don't remember ever seeing these, anywhere.
I only owned 2 of them originally, and then I've had to accumulate the other 10 over 25 years.
But I don't know, half my Game Boy Advance library to this day is still Mega Man games, so,
That's why you weren't looking for these.
I guess. I don't know. Okay, so Zelda, Zelda 2, Mario Bros., and Metroid. All complete in box for the Game Boy Advance. I'm going to guess 400.
400. You're pretty close. The total value of my lot is $353.07.
$46.93 off.
Yep.
Okay.
The price for Super Mario Classic NES series complete in box for the Game Boy Advance, $64.63. Metroid, everything the same, $94.34. Zelda is $86.75. And Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, is $107.35.
That's not too bad.
Yeah,
for
none of them
complete
are
in box GBA.
Astronomical, but
I always struggle with complete in box because that's not what I shop for pretty much ever. If it's a cartridge game, I'm just like, nah, give it to me loose. Especially if it's going to be double the price for the box.
So give it to me loose, dirty, label missing.
Well, I mean, obviously I'd rather have, I don't know. The boxes take up space. I don't have that much room left on my shelf, but I have one complete in-box GBA game to this day, and it's actually Mother 3. So,
nice.
There you go.
Those take up more space, right? Those are the taller boxes.
No, not for Game Boy Advance, really. They obviously take up a lot more than. I've got it right here. I can show you. I don't know. Maybe it's because I put it on its side because that's the way it reads. Because it's obviously people listening cannot see.
Yeah, but I think those are larger boxes than the American, or they're at least longer. They're different.
Aren't the American ones more square?
Yes.
Because this is a much wider aspect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think.
Yeah.
The American boxes.
I don't think they're square, but they're like 4:3 or something, right?
They're the same as the Game Boy box.
Yeah. I haven't looked at one in a long time.
Yeah.
Not since I opened my last copy of my last newly purchased new Game Boy Advance game. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking that the Japanese Game Boy Advance boxes are more rectangular.
All right. So I got fairly close. So we are tied, if I remember correctly. We are tied at the moment.
Yes.
For the season. So, pressure's on. My list is 4 games. I'll see if you know the theme afterward, but just think about the price right now. I don't know if you'll put this together, because these might seem very different. My list is Mass Effect 2 for the Xbox 360, complete in box. Hearts of Iron for the PC, complete in box. The rare PC game appearance. Price charting doesn't have a lot of those. Golden Sun: The Lost Age for the Game Boy Advance, loose. and Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn for the Wii, complete in box.
I'm going to say $150.
$150. Okay, you're very close. You will take this round. The total is $166.08.
Yes.
So breakdown is Mass Effect 2 for the Xbox 360, $553. Hearts of Iron for the PC, $12.99. Golden Sun: The Lost Age for the Game Boy Advance, $34.99. And Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn for the Wii, $112.57.
So pretty close.
It pulled most of the weight there for the total price. So these are all somewhat related to our topic for tonight, which is New Game Plus, though sort of different. These are all games that allow you to import save data from a previous game in the series. So Golden Sun does that. Notably, Radiant Dawn, from what I understand, has this feature, but it doesn't work in the North American release. But supposedly you can unlock some things, and even
by putting
I think it's supposed to even carry over the stats of the returning characters, maybe, if you have save data from Path of Radiance on the GameCube. Mass Effect 2, obviously, that's kind of the whole point of the trilogy.
Yep.
Hearts of Iron is an interesting example because the Paradox games that all use the same engine, these are all grand strategy games, have done this since the first Crusader Kings was released, though it was technically more a prequel to Europa Universalis. So you can actually run the same campaign starting as early as the year, I think it's 766 in Crusader Kings, and finish it in 1968 in Hearts of Iron. And simulate about a millennium of world history. I don't know if there's got to be somebody who's done it. I haven't even crossed games once. I pretty much only play Crusader Kings. I haven't even reached the end date of Crusader Kings, come to think of it. 2 or 3. But I always thought that was super cool. So yeah.
Alter the course of history.
So the lead is yours once again, John. It was nice, that brief moment where I think for like a whole 2 weeks in a row, I was on top.
I think so. Do we not have a guest list or anything? Nobody sent anything in?
We do not have a guest list this week.
Okay.
So that decides it. The robot obviously is in last place because he guessed on both. Well, technically, I guess he would be in first place because he won both rounds or tied both rounds with each of us. But his total is off. So
the rundown so far is Dan has 2 wins. I have 7. You have 6. A guest has won once, and the robot has won once.
All right, we got to get another guest to win so that they can be better than the robot
and be as good as Dan.
Oh yeah, but who knows? Dan may one day return. He may bless us with his presence yet.
Take
again.
The crown back.
We await that day. He'll win six times immediately and take the lead. Yeah, but that's The Price is Retro. Do we have a trivia card?
We do. Let's see here. Question number 1. Which video game developer created the Uncharted... Wait a minute, I think we've already done this one.
Oh, well, it's Naughty Dog, right?
Yeah, but I think I remember this.
Hey, I got a PlayStation question right.
Yes.
And that's past PlayStation 2, which is when I stopped paying attention to PlayStation.
Okay, here we go. We'll do this one. Dr. Eggman is the alias for which popular video game bad guy? What's his real name?
Robotnik.
Full name.
Oh gosh. Ivan?
It's Ivo.
Ivo. Well,
I
would actually be more embarrassed if I got something right about Sonic, so
yeah.
You know.
And then this is the double Sonic. So what's the nickname of Sonic the Hedgehog's best friend, Miles Prower?
Tails.
That's correct. I think we're getting close to doing all these now.
Wow. You gotta upgrade your trivia, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to just start finding my own. The cards are too simple anyway.
We could come up with trivia against each other. That could
be a
whole thing. It's always difficult though, like gauging like what is, and that's the problem with those cards too, because I think those are for normies, for people who don't have a video game podcast and spend time almost every day on Discord talking about video games.
Yeah,
but for people who played a couple video games in their life.
Yeah, who's Dr. Eggman?
Well, I don't even know his first name, so
I'm surprised they had it on there. Usually they just put like a generic. It's Robotnik.
Yeah. But, well, that is it for this week's little game show segment. So we'll take a short break, and when we get back, we will talk all about our topic for the week, which is New Game Plus. So I'll see you there, and if you want to, you can listen to this segment twice and see if it's any different the second time. All right, welcome back. Or welcome back again if you listen to the segment twice on New Game Plus or New Podcast Plus. Is that a thing? Can you New Podcast Plus? That would be
I don't think so, but Dan, I was asking Dan if he wanted to come on and talk about New Game Plus, and he thought I was talking about a podcast called New Game Plus. Because I guess there is one.
I just learned that exists.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
No, we're talking more the concept.
Yes.
This does seem to be the most general way to refer to it, but it was around a long time before it. The first game, to my knowledge, to call it New Game Plus was Chrono Trigger. It was, of course, not the first game to do this, but I'm referring to when games allow you to start a new game, carrying over progress from your previous game on some level. Things like experience points, levels, items, collectibles, or what have you. Sometimes allowing you to do things that aren't possible on an original playthrough. So other early examples, I think the earliest I know of is the original Legend of Zelda with the Another Quest. Game ends, it says press start for another quest, and you get what is essentially a hard mode. The interesting thing about Another Quest is it was kind of like something that is the opposite of the problem of crunch, and what we get these days is they realized they had extra room on the cartridge and extra time to finish the game, so they're like, let's make another quest.
Yep.
And they did. And it was great. The original Metroid does this, interestingly, which is not something that is too common in most other Metroid games. I haven't spent a lot of time with NES Metroid, to be honest.
Well, it's kind of weird,
but this kind of
the game, like if it gives you everything, it's kind of like defeating.
Well, my understanding, it gives you pretty much everything but missiles and energy. So you can actually traverse everything like immediately, which, because the first Metroid had those endings based on, and every Metroid does this, based on your clear time, that means that becomes very easy to hit those clear time marks much more easily than on a fresh start.
Yeah.
Ghosts and Goblins did this more as a frustrating way of dangling the end of the game in front of you and then making you repeat the entire thing.
Yep.
But that does sort of qualify as well. It's also Kirby's Dream Land's extra game, which I know our friend Flightsy has enjoyed greatly playing through. Encouraged a lot of other people to play it. Play the extra game specifically.
The Ghost and Goblins one, I remember listening to. It's been a while now. I can't remember I can't put a specific to it, but a podcast where someone mentioned that their parents made a deal with them that when they got their Super Nintendo, they could, as soon as they finished a game, they would buy them another one, and they would trade in or do whatever. Well, the very first game that they got was Ghosts and Goblins, or and they're like, they basically are like, yeah, we can never beat this game. So I guess that's the only game they ever got.
Imagine if they did, though. And then, like, the second game they got was Battletoads.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. You would just be doomed. You'd have 2 games for the whole life of the console.
So, in general, New Game Plus is something that spans a lot of genres. It tends to be pretty common in RPGs. I guess because RPGs are games where progress is so hard fought and hard earned that it always sometimes you don't want to let go of all the levels you got, all the loot you stored up, etc. But it does kind of pose an interesting question. I like to talk about difficulty because I think difficulty makes games interesting, but it's also such a difficult, there's the word again, but it's also such a balance to strike because one level of difficulty is too frustrating for one player and another level is so easy as to be boring for another player. And New Game Plus kind of does interesting things with a game's difficulty because at the base level, the most basic version of it, like you stay level 70 and go back to the beginning of the game is ridiculously easy now, of course. Yep. But sometimes it's used as a hard mode, actually. And sometimes it's like a bit of both. Like, you get all your abilities, but now all the enemies are stronger too. And so we're kind of expecting that since you know how to play the game now, we're kind of going to up the challenge level, but we're also not going to take everything away.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's usually the easy route more often than not. I feel like making the game more difficult doesn't happen as often.
Well, sometimes it gets more difficult, but it sort of like evens out with, we let you keep all your power-ups. So yeah. It's not actually harder. The increase in difficulty is basically to keep it from getting too easy.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess is this something you tend to do often? Is play the New Game Plus?
I've been playing a couple lately, actually. That's kind of why this got on my mind, and I've got some examples here. But I had one other interesting question that I thought of, and that's when it comes to New Game Plus. Well, is it something you actually use much, or is it just kind of like, no, I'd rather move on to the next game?
I have very few games that I like to do New Game Plus with. It becomes even harder the further we go and the more games we have.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people don't replay games, period.
Exactly.
So it does become kind of a neglected feature, but it's interesting that I've been seeing it in a lot of games still. There are people who have a lot of free time, it seems.
Yeah.
But supposing you did, or you were, do you think it's more relevant if you finish a game but you just don't want to put it down, or if you're coming back to a game you played before, say years ago? Would you want to start a fresh save, or would you say, "Oh, this game has a New Game Plus. I'm gonna do that"?
In most cases, I think I would want to start a fresh save, but, and this is an example of a game that I've used the New Game Plus twice now, and that is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is basically allows you to start another house, but still keep all of your stuff. So I've done three of the houses, but I haven't done
in that one, from what I remember, you do not carry over level ups.
No.
You mostly carry over your skill training.
Yep. Yeah, you get to keep your...
It does make the game substantially easier, but it doesn't make it like cakewalk easy.
No, I mean, it has its... You could skip a lot of the beginning of the game, is the thing. It's like you can kind of fly through the first part of the game if you're doing New Game Plus, because a lot of the time you're spending at that early stages are like trying to build your classes up. So since you maintain your class levels, you're not necessarily doing that as much at the beginning. So there was a lot of, because that game's kind of split between two parts by a story arc. So kind of fly through the first half. It's probably a 40-hour game if you're playing it, 40 to 50 hours if you're playing it through the full thing without the New Game Plus, but it kind of shrinks it down to about like a 20-hour game if you're using your previous save.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that the New Game Plus concept does well. Some games, by the end, will present you with a whole lot of options. I think it's kind of smart that they do not overwhelm the player with tons of options from the beginning. But if you're somebody who's played through the entire game before, and you know what all those options are, and you know which ones you want even, why not have them all available at the beginning? If it's not a matter of completely unbalancing the game. So I think that is one of the places where they shine. You mentioned Fire Emblem having, the 3 different houses, a branching story. I think that's why we see Chrono Trigger kind of codifying how New Game Plus works, is because that's also a game with multiple endings. Yep. Now, Chrono Trigger's multiple endings don't really so much branch the story as just end it prematurely. Every time I've played Chrono Trigger, I pretty much go for what I always think of as the real ending. Like,
yep.
Everything else is just kind of like a side thing.
Yeah, or like a sub ending to what, or a failure, or a different type.
Yeah, situation. A number of them are really just bad endings.
Yeah, most of them.
And some of them are just jokes.
Yep, which is still a bad ending.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe everybody turning into reptites is really the best outcome. I don't know.
Could be.
Other games will have exclusive content that is only accessible on a New Game Plus file, including things like a additional secret ending. One I played recently, although I think it's possible to get the hidden ending in Triangle Strategy your first playthrough. I'm not sure if it is or not. I didn't. I did it the second time through. I'd have to look that up because I don't know. You have to make specific choices in order to accomplish it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you actually have to be on a repeat playthrough to meet all the conditions. I don't know if that's actually one of the conditions or not. There are a number of games that do it well. There are some games that do it somewhat woodenly. Because the very straightforward example of like, you're still level 70, but you're playing through, the dungeon with the level 2 monsters is like, why would I do that? Like, that's just not very exciting. If it's a game that lets you skip irrelevant fights or something like that, then that's a little bit better. The World Ends With You is one that implemented it pretty well. It's not even strictly speaking a New Game Plus. The game is separated into 3 weeks of in-game time, and you can actually warp back in time to any specific day and play through the story of that day. And because of the way the game's structured, you can actually lower your level to get increased loot drops. That's all there. Some of the early stuff is still super easy because you still have in-game equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
But it kind of sends you on a little scavenger hunt to get all these items that you can't get originally as well. So that's one I thought always did it really well. And it kind of works because of how the game structures battles anyway, where most of them are optional and you only do it to level up. So that's another one I thought always did it quite well. I don't know if you have any experience with playing a game through to get all the content. If that was a driving factor.
That was basically what was driving me to do 3 houses. That was a situation where I played 2 of the houses just back to back. Like I finished it, put 50 hours in, and
so
then
you did dive right back in.
I did dive right back in. I just
one.
turned around, started back up, and played 20 to 25 more hours and did another house.
I think I did 2 playthroughs, and I think I waited in between only because I knew at that point that the higher difficulty was coming in a patch.
Yep.
I thought about doing a third, but like because the beginning of the game is largely the same, I was just like, no, I'm not going through this. It takes too long. It's not very exciting. It's not very interesting anymore. I'm done. And there's 4 routes technically. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. I did 3 of them. I need to go back and do the DLC.
Well, the DLC is separated. You don't have to. It's its own thing.
Yeah, I just haven't done it. But that's what I'm saying. That's the only thing I have left to do is that. One that I've recently thought about starting the New Game Plus, because it's still fresh enough to where I'm probably not feeling like I want to go back and start it all the way over again, is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Because I just recently did the DLC for it, and I kind of would like to go back and revisit at some point. There's just too many things.
Yeah, well, I have been clear that I didn't really appreciate Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I assume 3 is a bit like it, but I did notice in my experience from the second game that the game felt like a lot of it was locked behind, was intended for a New Game Plus or post game. There were a lot of areas you could explore, but you would quickly get one shot by super high leveled enemies if you strayed from the path the game was telling you to take, especially early on. And that was something that annoyed me. A lot of things about that game annoyed me, though. And I try not to complain about it because I know a lot of people love it.
I mean, I would almost tell you to go and try 3, but I know that the reason why you don't like the games is more of their kind of online multiplayer RPG type gameplay.
It's honestly astonishing. Xenoblade, I hate everything about it except the music. The music's good. Everything else.
Because
it consistently makes these decisions I would never make from a game design perspective, or that I would not want.
Well, like they call the series a trilogy, but really all 3 games are quite drastically
different.
Quite different from each other. 3 being probably the most different, just because you're following the same characters like through, you're not really acquiring a party like you do in the other ones where like you kind of slowly gain characters. It's a more, to me, it feels more story focused. It's not a large story overall, but it seems like it's more closely held, like a tighter story. But it's every single one of them changed how the battles happen. All the mechanics change, so like everything is literally the only thing that stays the same as the fact that it's auto fighting. So like it, the hits happen automatically. You direct the strategy of it.
It's more of a kind of general. I mean, people have talked a lot about how Final Fantasy is mutated over the years. I mean, this is what RPG series do. They like to reinvent themselves. Speaking of other games, other hot takes of mine, I've mentioned before on this show, I really appreciate Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. And this is a game that leans hard into a New Game Plus concept. It is central to how the game is played. It is one of the reasons people are incredibly frustrated with it. It's one of the reasons a lot of Breath of Fire fans hate it and blame it for killing the series. But the game basically has this system in it where you have these overpowered dragon abilities that you can use. But every time you do, you have a D ratio, it's called in the game, that approaches 100%.
Yeah,
it increases when you use these abilities. When it hits 100%, it is game over, game over. You cannot do anything else but fail at that point. You can reload a save. Now, the game limits saving. And if you save at 99%, like, you're kind of... You've almost soft-locked yourself. Almost for sure. Because the end of the game almost necessitates using these to beat the final slew of bosses. But the game is just sort of like teaching you, because you can restart the game, carry over some of that progress, be stronger, rely on the dragon powers less in the early beginning of the game, and beat things the harder way because you're more powerful now, and then bulldoze through the final boss by using your dragon powers, because you now can get through the rest of the game without them. And that's just sort of like how the game is set up. It's also set to actually, after game clears, you will get a D ratio assigned to you from anywhere between, I forget where it starts at. I only got like the next power of 2 up from where it starts, because it measures based on like your time cleared, how many chests you found, how many save points you used, because it likes to limit your saves. But if you really want to maximize, you're supposed to beat the game basically without saving, only using quick save, which is like a suspend. So it's kind of Iron Man style. Like,
yeah.
You can't reload that save while playing. You can only use it to take a break, basically. And depending on how high your D ratio is, on repeat playthroughs, you unlock additional cutscenes that give you more backstory, particularly about the villains, and you can unlock new items that are behind walls that are sealed, which in turn helps you to better improve it for the next time through, until you get all the way up to the maximum D ratio is 1/4, or Dragon Quarter. Although Dragon Quarter, no content is locked behind that. 1/8 actually unlocks everything. Dragon Quarter is just for bragging rights. But I have yet to really play through the game after clearing it once. But I actually keep thinking of doing so, because I really like that game, actually, even though a lot of people don't, because I have weird taste, and for some reason I really like games that limit the number of times you can save, because I hate myself, I guess. I like Maximo too. What can I say?
It's funny. So let's see. Have you talked about Armored Core yet?
I have not talked about Armored Core. I could talk about Armored Core for a long time. I really like this game. I was thrilled that it had not just a New Game Plus, but a New Game Plus Plus, which you have to clear to get the final of the 3 endings, which I did, because I just wanted to keep playing Armored Core 6. So I kept playing Armored Core 6 until I got every Steam achievement on it. And it was a lot of fun. Armored Core is a game that works really well for this, because you don't get strictly more powerful over time, but you do unlock new equipment. And that new equipment tends to make you more powerful. It's not a strict, like, I don't think there's any one part that is better in every way from your starting equipment, but it pretty much is. Like,
yeah,
at the very least, like, that starting rifle is like lighter weight than the more powerful ones you unlock later. But having all those options and trying out different builds, and then unlocking new missions each time through, including the true ending, is always a lot of fun. It really gives you, and going back to those easier missions even, although the New Game Plus, because it does unlock new missions, throws some very hard ones in at you early because they know you can handle them. Like there's times where there's actually times on New Game Plus where you're doing a mission you remember before, and you remember it being easy, and then like a boss from the next to last mission shows up, and you're like, oh, this is different than I remember. So that's fun. But really just having the opportunity to go back to the easier ones is nice because you can mess around with weapons you haven't used yet, because especially on the harder missions, you kind of default back to whatever was working at the time. You know, you default back to that Zimmerman shotgun because it's OP. And when you look up guides, everybody says, use the Zimmerman shotgun. It's OP. This is the only way to beat this boss. And then you go back to New Game Plus and you're like, you know what? I'll try laser rifles this time. I'll maximize laser rifle damage, get the generator that gives them the most damage, and see how I can fit 2 of them on a frame, even though it can barely support the weight. And then I'm like, oh, this actually works really well. And it's really good on these early missions because these laser rifles one-shot all the weak enemies. They're just not as good at handling like in-game super bosses. So it's things like that I think really make it shine. The other one I have on here as a recent example is one I've been struggling through a little bit, and I haven't even gotten to the New Game Plus part, and that's Mega Man Battle Network 4. Battle Network 4 is the only game in the series that really does this. Battle Network 2 does have a hard mode you can unlock, but it doesn't really carry over anything for you. It's just hard mode after clearing the game. But Battle Network 4 is structured in such a way, the main plot of the game is around these different battle tournaments that Lan and Mega Man enter. And when you beat the game, you have not seen every tournament opponent. So you do a New Game Plus. And in New Game Plus, all the enemies are basically replaced with stronger palette swap versions of themselves. And during the tournaments, you might encounter these other opponents that you did not encounter the first time. You'll actually even see them on the tournament bracket, but they'll get eliminated before you actually get to fight them. They get eliminated by somebody else on your other playthroughs.
Oh.
It's kind of a cool concept. It's just that it really feels like they were trying to milk more time out of a game that was rushed in development. And you wind up repeating very tedious fetch quests as many as 3 times, because in order to 100% this game, in order to even see the secret area, which is the part of the game that has the most of an actual plot, the actual ending to the game, really, you have to beat the game 3 times, which is not fun. And the real kicker is this. During those playthroughs, if you miss a collectible, it's called mystery data in Mega Man Battle Network, but it's essentially what would be a treasure chest in another RPG. If you collect it on playthrough 1, it gets replaced with a different item on playthrough 2. If you do not collect it on playthrough 1, playthrough 2, it is the playthrough 1 item. If you're trying to 100% the game, if you're trying to fill out your battle chip library, you miss something on playthrough 1, you get it on playthrough 2, you get the playthrough 2 version on playthrough 3, and now you realize your mistake all that time ago, and you have to play through the game a 4th time to actually get the final item. This is why I've never 100%ed this game before, because I made that mistake. It is designed to irritate completionists. And so this is a bad use of New Game Plus.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I'm not even usually a completionist, but I love these games so much. It's kind of like when the collection came out, my dream of 100%ing all the games is something I want to achieve. So I am putting myself through this now. for the sake of fulfilling a childhood dream. And hopefully I don't lose my sanity over the course of it. I'm still on playthrough 1, by the way. So we'll see how I feel by playthrough 3.
I'm trying to think of some other games that I played that I used the New Game Plus on.
Did you ever play Luigi mode in Mario Galaxy?
I did not. I
like Luigi mode because Luigi is different than Mario. It is one of those that's like just a little bit harder because he does have his classic traits of sliding more and jumping higher. And there is a 121st star if you clear Luigi mode for you to get. I've never actually done that. I got a lot of stars in Luigi mode, but I don't think I got all 120 as Luigi.
No, I mean, that's a lot of work.
It is. And at some point when you're like, I've done this before, and I have another game I haven't played yet. That's why I think this was really, a bigger deal when, you were a kid that had like 3 games.
Yep.
And you didn't get another one until next Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what that was for, to kind of expand the value of a game time-wise to allow you to keep playing it and have a purpose for keep playing it, especially games that once you beat once, they don't change again.
Yeah. Well, and in some ways, this is, a topic that came up recently, all the remakes these days. And I think this taps into the same concept, except it doesn't require us buying a new product. This isn't something that gets monetized. But, people love remakes because they want the familiar game they know that they like, but they also want it to be new and different. I've always been it's the cheapskate in me, but I always poo-poo the remakes because I'm like, I already have that game. Now, that's not to say, like, if you want to buy Super Mario RPG for the Switch, go ahead and do so. Don't let me stop you, especially if you haven't played it before. I'm sure it's a great remake. I just don't see a need for me to buy the Switch version because I have the Super Nintendo game. And I love the Super Nintendo game. If I want to play Super Mario RPG again, I'm going to put it in my Super Nintendo and play it again. I don't need the Switch version.
No. I just remembered one that I started New Game Plus. This isn't a classic game, though. This is Ghost of Tsushima for PS4.
Okay.
I played through it. This is another one where I immediately hopped right in and started New Game Plus. I played a little ways in and then got distracted. But that was basically, I just wanted to play more of the game, and I didn't buy the DLC or get the deluxe edition that came with the DLC. So I was like, well, I'll just start the New Game Plus and work my way back through the game again. And then I did that until something on the Switch came out, and I usually was hopping back and forth. So
yeah, I've done that on quite a few. I can't think of too many examples right away, but I think especially when it comes to like those RPGs that do it, one of the things I love about RPGs, and I know it's not what draws everybody to the genre, is planning out character building. Like if you've got like a skill tree, or like what Pokemon you're going to catch, or whatever, which Pokemon hasn't really done it. Now, I guess the equivalent is trading stuff in from another game if you have multiple games, or like especially this Time Machine and Gold Silver, which let you trade them in from blue, red, yellow.
Which I guess Gold and Silver kind of had New Game Plus because you could play through the first games region after completing the game. Yeah,
but all those gym leaders were somewhat appropriate. No, I think most of them are actually around the same level as the Elite Four. So they're not very difficult. You can go through it quite fast. And the wild Pokemon are about the level they would have been
Yep.
in Red and Blue. But then there's Mount Silver, which is like post game. But that's just something I love about RPGs. So that's one of the things that'll get me to go back in is like, and usually I'll dive in right away. I usually won't commit to a full playthrough, but I'll dive in right away because I'm like, I wonder what it would have been what the game would have been like if I spec'd my character into magic instead of, melee combat. And I want to, play the first, eighth of the game that way to just kind of get a feel for what that's like. So I'll do that a lot.
I guess Symphony of the Night had a pretty good New Game Plus.
That the Richter mode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never played it.
Yeah, a lot of Castlevania games did something like that. Especially it's very common any Castlevania game, I think, where you don't play as a Belmont, there will be an unlockable mode where you play as a Belmont. Because I think the first one I did was Julius mode in Aria of Sorrow.
Yeah.
Shout out to Julius Belmont, the guy who finally actually defeated Dracula for good.
Yeah. For good.
And did so without ever getting his own game. That's just the funny thing about the Castlevania timeline to me. There was this epic battle in 1999 where Dracula was finally defeated for good, and no, we will not tell you anything else about it.
Yep. Oh yeah, and it didn't even, like you said, it didn't even happen in its own game. Like, it was a mode.
It's the backstory for Aria of Sorrow, because it takes place in like 2034 or whatever.
Yeah, I can't think of any more off the top of my head that I have experience playing. I mean, there's tons of games that have New Game Plus in some form or fashion, but...
Well, and that's the interesting thing, that it hasn't fallen out of style. You might think, like, in today's age, with so many more games coming out, nobody has time for it, but, like, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, as a New Game Plus. Triangle Strategy had a New Game Plus. Triangle Strategy does a very good job addressing the difficulty issue because of the way the whole game scales with your level. So it actually does stay appropriately challenging no matter how many times you play through. Although you'll probably hit the level cap halfway through your second playthrough. I really like Triangle Strategy. That's a game I should play again.
Yeah, I need to go back to it.
It has 2 whole endings I never got.
2 whole endings.
Yep.
I'm trying to... I need to go
as
back.
As many endings as 3 houses.
Yeah. I need to go back. I think I made at least halfway through it and had to hop off for something else. It's one of those I haven't bought the collector's edition with the cards and the steel dice and all that stuff.
Oh, man. All in on that, huh?
Yep.
Well, I played it twice, so you don't have to. I played it once for both of us.
I also haven't went and played Octopath Traveler 2 yet, which I'm pretty sad about.
Oh, it's really good. I'm kind of disappointed and maybe it's the recency bias thing, but I'm disappointed that's not in anybody's Game of the Year conversations. Because it is for me.
Yeah.
It might not win it out. It might still be Tears of the Kingdom, but Octopath Traveler 2 is top 3 of the year for me. And this was a great year.
It's hard to beat. I have a strong feeling that Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to be Game of the Year for lots of places.
Certainly for the Nintendo fans, but even non-Nintendo fans give Zelda its due, it seems.
Yeah. Like, I know that I think currently right now Baldur's Gate 3 has a better critic score.
I enjoy the game, but Baldur's Gate 3 is not even the best RPG this year.
No. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be really hard to not give Tears of the Kingdom a Game of the Year nod, even Game Awards have to.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what the Game Awards are thinking, man.
Yeah.
I have different, what do I know?
Even on a
I like Breath of Fire
scale.
Dragon Quarter. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah, but even like I said, on a public scale, like Tears of the Kingdom is still huge. Like there were people from all turns of gaming talking about it.
I like Star Fox Zero. Something is definitely wrong with me.
But Star Fox Zero definitely did not get any game awards. Maybe some Raspberry Awards. You and Dan will always.
I didn't say it was say it was Game of the Year, but I just liked it. Okay.
I mean, it's a good game. It's just not. It wasn't good enough to save the Wii U.
Clip that way. Star Fox Zero is a good game.
Star Fox Zero, not good enough to save the Wii U, though.
What's that, Dan? Star Fox Zero is a good game? He agrees, too.
Yep.
We all heard it.
He wants Star Fox Zero to come to the Switch.
This is just my bait to get him back on the show, you see. Either Dan agrees that Star Fox Zero is a good game, or he comes back on the show to correct me, and we have him back. Either way, I win.
That's right. Star Fox Zero is like one of the few Wii U games that still haven't made it to the Switch. Like that tells you where it stands.
Yeah,
I mean they've brought everything
because it can be replicated. Star Fox Zero is the one game that will always be unique to the Wii U.
They could figure it out. They put Zombie U on other consoles.
Sometimes stuff is lost. This is why, also because it's a remake of a game I already played, but this is why I didn't buy the Skyward Sword remake. I actually loved Skyward Sword for being a Wii game that used motion controls.
You could still use them. They're just not as good.
You can, but they're not as good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I think that's the best way to play the game.
It's
not everybody
bad
agrees with me.
The current generation of gaming console can't even be better with motion controls.
Well, the actual infrared tracking is better, is the thing, but there's no sensor bar, so you have to recenter all the time.
Yeah, you gotta recalibrate it all the time, which is horrible.
I'm just glad that Skyward Sword came out after the Motion Plus and did make use of it. Otherwise, it probably would not have done well. Well,
if I remember, it came with it, right?
It just wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been a good game. It came with. That's actually the first Motion Plus I got was the gold Wiimote that came with Skyward Sword.
I still have some Wiimotes that have the Motion Plus adapter.
Yeah,
still seems
that's what came
weird.
with Wii Sports Resort.
That's what still seems weird is that you could just plug in a little Wiimote butt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cost-effective way for people who already own, as many Wii remotes as they have family members.
Yeah, but now it's going to make me go and research what they actually did. What does that dongle actually do to increase the motion ratio?
Well, it has an accelerometer in it, just like the cartridges for Kirby Tilt and Tumble have a built-in.
But doesn't the Wiimote already have that?
Is the main way it works. I don't think the Wiimote only has an accelerometer. It doesn't have a gyroscope to sense fine tilt.
It adds a gyroscope.
It only senses sudden changes in acceleration, not balance.
Gotcha.
So I think that's why, because I may be wrong, but my understanding is the base Wii remote is using infrared to pinpoint the location of the remote through the pointer, and then an accelerometer to respond to acceleration of the remote itself. And the nunchuck, it doesn't matter where you hold it or even what direction you hold it, just that you move it with enough force, enough acceleration for it to pick up a motion.
Yep.
And that's really where the Switch could be said to be better, because both Joy-Con can do all of it Whereas the nunchuck, even with Motion Plus, the nunchuck was still quite crude by the standards of even a Joy-Con.
Yeah, but there's no instances where you need to have both controllers.
No, but I think there could be possibilities.
I guess if you had a sword and a shield, and you could maneuver the shield in different directions as well. That might be
Or I mean, with the Joy-Con, they can function as player 1 and player 2. But you can, in some games where they're used, you can play 2-player with yourself.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking, like, when you're using the Wiimote in Zelda, like, you have 1-to-1 motion with the sword. But what if they gave you that same flexibility with the shield, and they created fighting puzzles that also required you to block different?
Yeah.
That would be kind of different. Somewhere at Nintendo that exists. I guarantee it.
Oh, it's got to. They were probably thinking about motion controls a lot. That was probably a hard decision going into the Switch, is like, how much do we want to do with motion controls? And it's one of the reasons I'm actually so upset ARMS didn't take off more, which ARMS actually did relatively well. I want to beat that horse again. Like, ARMS was not a failure. ARMS sold like almost 10 million units. It's still like in the top 30 Switch games, I believe. For a while, it was in the top 20.
Yeah.
I think it got booted out by stuff doing insanely well now.
And that's the thing.
It still sold more than almost every Wii U game.
Yeah. When the Switch came out, though, like they were heavily pushing motion control just to see where it would go. And when nobody responded to it, they were like, all right, we're getting rid of all of it. We're not going to do it. Like we didn't see anything using motion control for quite a while.
Which is a shame, though, because that's when it just started getting good. Like, Skyward Sword is when motion control was actually being used well, and it wasn't just waggle. Well, and then everybody's like, motion control, that's for babies.
Well, it's not even the motion control, but just all the other things that the Joy-Con can do. None of it was even utilized after, like, the first year of the
Rumble.
Switch. Yeah, none of that stuff is utilized.
Anybody remember HD Rumble?
No. Count these marbles that are in here. You remember that?
Well, I think part of it, too, is the Pro Controller killed it. Well, the Pro Controller and the Switch Lite. I mean, it killed the Joy-Con, really. It killed all other functionality, so...
Kind of cannibalized it to where...
And I love the Pro Controller, and I think gyro on those controllers needs to be there in the future, and probably will be, because Splatoon will make it there.
That's already moving into other, like...
Yeah.
PS5 has it. Xbox, I think maybe I don't think any of them have it. I might be wrong. I know the base Xbox One or Xbox Series, they didn't really change the controller that much when they went from the Xbox One to the Series X. But that base controller does not have gyro. I know that. So that's
we can talk about controllers. We did an episode on controllers. This is the podcast plus on controllers now.
Yes.
We've carried over all our experience points from that discussion to now.
Yeah, we added plus content to this episode
because there you go.
We went so far off topic.
It's the secret ending.
We started talking about the Wii.
Hey man. Sometimes you just got to talk about the Wii. It's one of those times. But we would like to know your comments on New Game Plus, on motion controls, on ARMS, on why you think Star Fox Zero is in fact a good game. Let us know on our Discord. You can find links to all that on our website, retrologic.games. Thank you for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you are welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. And once again, you can find links to all of that at our website, retrologic.games. With that said, good night and have fun.
Bye now.